Welcome to the Robotics Through Science Fiction podcast. I'm Robin Murphy, and you might enjoy my new Science Robotics article about Little Eyes, the book about Samantha Schweblin. David Grossman at Inverse wrote a nice article about it. It's an excellent book in a very literary sense. Well, it is a science fiction sense, but it's really a literature book. It was longlisted for the Man Booker Prize, but it's a really great book for thinking about robotics. Now, my Science Robotics article review of it concentrates on the HRI human robot interaction and the ethical issues. And basically, in the article, I'm being a bit of a scold, kind of reminding my colleagues that we shouldn't be like, oh, who knew people would react to robots this way? Because when it comes to people misusing robotics technology, we do know. But there's a bit of a culture that we have of just do the press release, take the money, and run off to the next startup. So the article for Science Robotics is short, so I thought I would expand on three topics of robotics that there was not space to be covered for in the article. Morphology, shape, social robotics, that interaction, and this idea of teleoperation to control the robots. But first, let's talk about the book. The book is a series of threads about different users of a Kentucky robot. It's the latest fad. And the deal is somebody for $250 buys a Kentucky and they come in five shapes. You pick a dragon, a unicorn, a panda. You know. The shapes don't have arms or appendages. Just think of it kind of as a Furby on a mobile base. It has a camera and a microphone, but no speaker. So the person who buys the robot is called a keeper. Meanwhile, somewhere else, somebody for $250 has bought a controller. Now, that's a dedicated tablet that's randomly paired with a keeper. That person's called a dweller, and they can drive the robot around with a video game like interface, and they can hear and see through the camera and the microphone, but they can't speak. So it becomes kind of a game, right? The dwellers have to figure out how to drive the robot where they are now. Things like, is that snow in the mountains in the window? Are we in the Alps? Are we the Andes? Meanwhile, the keepers are amused to try to figure out why that Kentucky is doing what it's doing. Like, keep going to the window so the dweller can see if that really is snow, that white stuff snow. And the book is about how both the keeper and the dwellers are often a bit lonely, so they try to overcome the technology and connect with each other. And therein lies the drama. The Kentucky amplifies everything about human relationships and human relationships foibles and social media. Not necessarily a good thing. So let's talk about morphology. So morphology means shape, and roboticists use it in two ways. One is, how does the shape impact mobility? Does the robot move with legs or with wheels? Does it have an arm that looks like a human arm? And the other is appearance and how we react to that. Is it a humanoid robot? Does it have a face? Is it a tablet with just numbers on it, or does it have animated eyes? So in terms of mobility and a mobility base, it's not particularly capable. The Kentucky have a Roomba level of mobility, can't even climb curbs. So it's just really going to be on whatever floor, that you put it on. Now, the second topic is social robotics. A big problem in social robotics for entertainment is, well, being social and being entertaining, which means the robot needs a personality and sufficient agency. Agency means it has enough control over itself and its goals. And that's been very hard to do commercially. I mean, the Sony dog, the Aibo, just couldn't do much. And there was an attempt to make a kid's toy, My Real Baby. Well, and it was very realistic, which is what it was supposed to be, very realistic. But babies cry a lot. If the baby is hungry, it cries. If the baby's lonely, it cries. If the baby's held upside down, it cries. So pretty much a little girl was getting a crying baby, which wasn't exactly what they were looking for. So that's always been a problem. But brilliantly, for the keeper, that problem of the pet's limited range of personality and behaviors is fixed by teleoperation because the dweller now has control, and for them, it's a puzzle and a challenge. So they don't know how to operate the robot. Their only feedback is a camera view and sound, and they have to keep watching their battery. So what it's doing often looks comical, and it tends to seem like it's like a pet that's beginning to learn its environment. And that's true because the keeper is in fact learning how to drive the robot and how to get around, from looking at about a foot off the ground. So the keeper is a human, but is a human working, or the dweller rather. The dweller is a human working under cognitive impairment. That mediation is making them work through kind of a keyhole effect, what they call in cognitive science a keyhole effect. And so they're doing kind of funny, dumb things that the keeper's looking at, going, "Oh, that's so cute. Oh, you got better today." Kentucky doesn't have a speaker, doesn't have a way to speak. So the different dwellers and keepers also come up with very creative ways to communicate, because some people do want to talk and they figure ways to spell out words and give directions and things like that. But let's get back to morphology. So this socialness is impacted by the morphology. The shape of the robots make the keeper subconsciously treat the robot like a pet, not like a person teleoperating a toy in front of the keeper. And that's exactly what human robot interaction predicts. I mean, first you have Cliff Nass's computers as social actors theory, which says if it moves, we're going to subconsciously treat it as an entity or an agent. I mean, we do that with puppets. I mean, think about ventriloquism. We focus on the movement and we mentally believe movement is purposeful, so there must be agency involved. And my own research had a little bit of a mini breakthrough in capturing this live. Responders working side by side with a rescue robot would look at the robot, point to something, and say, "Hey, you look at this," and then say, and then look as if they backwards, as if they could see the operator who may have been, like 100 feet away above ground, through the rubble, and go, "You're seeing this, right? Okay, you see, that." Treating these two differently, even though the person way back there was controlling the robot by the side. It happens. So anyway, back to morphology. The shape of the robot influences our expectations of the robot's intelligence. I mean, if it looks like a crow, it can't be much smarter than a bird, even though in reality, a Mensa level genius may be operating it. And of course, as a result, keepers say and do things they shouldn't, like take showers or have sex with the Kentucky watching. And the keeper's tablet may not be able to record, but you can take pictures of what's on the screen. You can see how that can go downhill pretty fast. The social interaction is made possible by teleoperation. Now, roboticists have always had a love-hate relationship with teleoperation. A lot of roboticists view it as a necessary evil, a degenerative case of autonomy. It just means we can't make an autonomous robot at peer level of intelligence. And so that's very dismissive. Well, that tends to underestimate the complexity of designing a good shared autonomy system, where a person would want to project themselves into a robot to do things like work remotely. I mean, there are things you see as you walk around. A responder can't be small enough to get into the rubble the way something the size of a cat or a ferret can be. So that's a problem. They tend to be dismissive. Another thing about roboticists uh, just assume the human will generate workarounds, and so there's not as much research into it as you were. And indeed, that generating workarounds for the bad interface and from what that keyhole effect you get by trying to work remotely turns out to be great, because all of those problems that would be unacceptable for NASA or for emergency response become just part of the game to overcome. So very accurate. And the big worry I have about this book is that it's so plausible. I have to wonder, are they doing something like this somewhere in Silicon Valley? Is somebody pitching this right now and getting big bucks to do it? But the second worry I have is that it's unclear what the future is for roboticists. I mean, we know about human robot interaction. There's been this corpus of understanding for close to 20 years. But I think we have a tendency to do what we saw in the book, victim blaming. People do the darndest things. Yeah, that's true, but we know about it. And, and how are we going to build things that don't take advantage or exploit that and lead to tragedy? Anyway, Little Eyes is great, and it's a very accurate view of robotics. If you want to learn more, you can read the Science Robotics article here at the RTSS website, or you can go to Science Robotics if you have a subscription. If you want to learn more about human robot interaction and how morphology, social robotics, and teleoperation come together, get my book, Learn AI and Human Robot Interaction through Asimov's I, Robot Stories. It will walk you through the concepts at a Discover Channel or Bill Nye level of explanation, just using Asimov's stories as examples. And of course, remember to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel so you won't miss a thing.